You imagine yourself walking down that hallway, the one where the fluorescent lights always flicker at exactly 11 p.m., casting flickering shadows across the pale green walls. You're Sarah Calloway, 28 years old, and you've been a hospice nurse for 6 years now, long enough to recognize the smell of death before it arrives, long enough to know that some patients go quietly, gratefully even, while others cling to this world with a desperation that makes your chest ache. But Marcus Whitmore? He's different. He's been different from the moment they wheeled him into room 237 4 months ago, his steel gray eyes following you across the room with an intensity that made your skin prickle. Tonight, those eyes are waiting for you again. You pause outside his door, your hand resting on the cool metal handle. The other nurses have noticed. Jennifer cornered you by the medication cart last Tuesday, her eyebrows raised. Girl, the way that man watches you. I've been doing this for 15 years, and I've never seen a patient look at a nurse like that. You'd laughed it off, but the truth stuck in your throat. You'd notice, too. The way his gaze would linger when you checked his vitals. The way his breathing would change when you leaned close. The way he'd time his requests to coincide exactly with your shifts. You push open the door. The room is dim, lit only by the pale wash of the monitor and the faint glow of the city through half-closed blinds. Marcus is awake, propped against pillows, and in the low light you can see how much the cancer has taken. 4 months ago he'd been formidable despite his illness, tall and broad-shouldered with silver threading through dark hair. Now his frame has withered, his skin translucent in that way that tells you death is no longer waiting but standing beside the bed. But his eyes are still sharp, still focused, still fixed on you with that unnerving intensity. Sarah, his voice is rough, eroded by pain and medication, but there's urgency in it. I was hoping you'd come. You force yourself to smile, slipping into that professional warmth you've perfected. I'm on shift until 7. Did you need something? Pain medication? Not medication. His hand moves across the blanket, reaching toward you with trembling fingers. I need to ask you something. Something personal. There it is. The thing you've been dreading. Your stomach tightens, and you take an involuntary step backward. This is the moment you've been trained for in all those seminars about boundaries and inappropriate patient behavior. You can hear your supervisor's voice. If a patient makes you uncomfortable, you remove yourself immediately. But you don't move. Something keeps your feet planted. Some instinct that this isn't what you think it is. Mr. Whitmore, you begin. I'm your nurse. If there's something outside of my professional capacity, I know what you think. He cuts you off, and there's pain in his expression that makes your prepared speech die. Pain. Not physical pain, though there's plenty of that etched into the lines around his eyes. This is something deeper, something carved into his soul and left to fester. I know how this must look, how I must seem to you. He closes his eyes briefly. I've watched you for months now, studied you, the way you move, the way you talk, and I know how that must make you feel. Your heart hammers against your ribs. Why? Why have you been watching me? Marcus takes a shuddering breath. Because when I look at you, I see everything I lost, everything I failed to protect. He pauses, and the silence stretches. I need you to do something for me, Sarah. Something that has nothing to do with medicine. I need you to deliver something. After I'm gone. The shift in his words catches you off guard. You find yourself moving closer despite yourself. Deliver what? From beneath his pillow, Marcus extracts an envelope. Cream-colored, expensive-looking, sealed with red wax, like something from another era. His hands shake as he holds it out. This. I need you to take this to the address on the envelope. Not now. After I'm gone. It's important, Sarah. More important than you could possibly understand. You take it, your fingers brushing his for just a moment. The paper feels heavier than it should. You turn it over, and your breath catches. 1847 Riverside Drive. The street name hits you hard, bringing back memories. That was your street. The street where you lived before the accident that took your adoptive parents and left you alone at 4 years old, with nothing but fractured memories, and the endless parade of foster homes that followed. How do you look up. How do you know this address? Relief flickers across his face. Or recognition. Because I've known about you for a very long time, Sarah Calloway. Longer than you've been working here. I've known about you since you were a child. The words don't make sense. That's impossible. I don't know you. But I've seen you. Marcus's voice is getting weaker. I've watched you grow up from a distance, made sure you were safe, made sure you had opportunities. He waves away the water you reach for. That scholarship for nursing school? The anonymous donor? The job recommendation that got you hired here despite having no experience? The apartment you were able to rent when no landlord would give a 22-year-old with no credit history the time of day? He watches the realization dawn across your face. That was all me, Sarah. You can't breathe. The envelope feels heavy in your hand. Why? Why would you do that? Marcus's eyes close. For a moment you think he slipped away, but then he speaks again. So quietly, you have to lean in. Because I owe you. I owe you everything. And I've spent the last 26 years trying to pay a debt that can never be repaid. His eyes open, looking at you with profound sorrow. Your parents, Sarah. Your real parents. I knew them. I worked with your father, and I'm the reason they're dead. The world stops. Everything stops. Your heartbeat, your breathing, time itself, all of it freezes in that single terrible moment. Your real parents. The ones you've spent your life trying not to think about, because how do you mourn people you can't even remember? You were 4 when your adoptive parents died in that car accident. But before them, there had been others. Birth parents whose faces you've never been able to recall. Dead, they'd told you. Your birth parents died when you were 2. That's all anyone would say. Until now. What? Your voice breaks. What are you talking about? But Marcus is fading, his energy spent. The envelope. Take it to that address. She'll explain everything. She's been waiting, just like I've been waiting. His hand grips your wrist with surprising strength. Promise me, Sarah. Promise me you'll go. Promise me you'll learn the truth. You should call for the doctor. Check his vitals. Do all the things you're trained to do. But instead you whisper, I promise. Marcus's grip loosens. He sinks back with something like peace settling across his features. Thank you. You stand there long after he falls asleep, the envelope clutched in your hand. Around you, the hospice continues its quiet routine. A television murmurs down the hall. A phone rings. The floor buffer hums. Normal sounds. Ordinary sounds. The sounds of a world that makes sense. But nothing feels normal anymore. You look down at the address again, and this time you notice something you missed. There's a name below the street address, Mary O'Brien. The name means nothing to you, and yet it resonates in a place deep inside you that you didn't know existed. You slip the envelope into your pocket and leave his room. Jennifer is at the nurse's station, and she looks up as you approach. Everything okay with Mr. Whitmore? He's resting. You manage, and your voice sounds strange, distant, hollow. Jennifer studies you. You look like you've seen a ghost, sweetie. I'm fine, just tired. She doesn't look convinced, but returns to her charts. You make your way to the break room, but the small space feels suffocating. You pull out the envelope again, running your fingers over the wax seal. What could be inside? And who is Mary O'Brien? Your phone buzzes, a text from your roommate asking if you'll be home by morning. You stare at this mundane question from your mundane life, and it's clear that nothing will ever be mundane again. Whatever truth Marcus wants you to discover is going to change everything. You know you should wait, Marcus said to deliver it after he's gone, but the weight of it in your pocket is unbearable. The questions are unbearable. And that address is pulling you. By the time your shift ends at 7, you've made your decision. You don't go home. Instead, you find yourself driving across the city, following streets you haven't traveled in over 2 decades. And there it is, Riverside Drive. The trees are taller than you remember, many houses renovated. But the bones of the neighborhood are the same. You can feel it in your chest. You park across from 1847, a modest 2-story house with blue siding and white trim. There's a garden in front, with early spring flowers just beginning to bloom. A wind chime hangs from the porch. It looks like a place where normal people live normal lives. It looks like the last place on earth where you'd find answers to impossible questions. But here you are. And there, in the second-floor window, you see a curtain move. Someone's home, someone's been watching, someone's been waiting. The front door opens before you can reach it, and a woman steps onto the porch. She's in her mid-30s with dark hair pulled back in a messy bun and eyes that are... God, they're familiar. You've seen those eyes before, though you can't place where. She's wearing pajama pants and an oversized sweatshirt, and there are tears streaming down her face before you've even said a word. Sarah? Her voice cracks on your name. Sarah, is it really you? And in that moment, standing on that porch with the morning light breaking over the roofline, you've just crossed a threshold from which there is no return. Whatever comes next is going to unmake everything you thought you were and rebuild you into someone new. The woman, Mary O'Brien, it must be Mary, takes a step toward you, her hand reaching out as if you'll disappear if she blinks. I've been looking for you. For so long, I've been looking for you. And a part of you that's been locked away for 26 years finally breaks open. You stand frozen on that porch, the morning air cold against your skin, and you can't make yourself move forward or backward. Mary O'Brien is crying openly now, her shoulders shaking, and with a jolt, you're crying too. Tears you didn't know were there are streaming down your face, and you don't understand why. You don't know this woman. You've never seen her before in your life. And yet, the deepest part of you recognizes her the way a compass recognizes north. I don't. Your voice fails. You try again. I don't understand. How do you know my name? Mary wipes her eyes with the sleeve of her sweatshirt, but fresh tears replace them immediately. Because you're my sister, Sarah. My little sister. I've been searching for you for over a decade. That afternoon, you drive back to the hospice for the first time in almost a week. The building looks exactly the same, but you feel like a different person walking through those familiar doors. Jennifer is at the nurse's station, and she looks up when you enter, her face breaking into a relieved smile. Sarah, thank God. We've been so worried about you. Then her smile fades as she really looks at you, taking in the shadows under your eyes. Honey, what's wrong? I need to see Marcus Whitmore. Is he... You can't finish the sentence, but Jennifer understands. He's still with us, asking for you, actually. Every day. Multiple times a day. He's been very agitated. She studies your face. I'll take you to him. Marcus's room is darker than you remember, the curtains drawn against the afternoon sun. He's awake, his eyes tracking your movement as you enter, and you're shocked by how much he's deteriorated in less than a week. His skin has taken on that translucent quality that says death is no longer waiting but standing beside the bed. But his eyes are still the same, sharp, guilt-ridden. Sarah, your name comes out as barely more than a breath. You came back. I was afraid. He stops, coughing. I found her, you say without preamble. I found Mary. We opened the safety deposit box. You pull a chair close to his bedside and sit. Why didn't you just go to the police yourself? Why make us do this? Marcus's eyes close briefly. When they open again, they're wet. Because I'm a coward. Even now, even at the end, I'm afraid. Afraid of Meridian. Afraid of what they might do in whatever time I have left. His voice breaks. Afraid of facing what I've done. Of admitting out loud that I let my best friend die because I was too scared to stand beside him. A tear rolls down his hollow cheek. I thought if I gave the evidence to you and Mary, you could be the heroes I never was. you could finish what David started. And maybe it would mean something. The rage you've been carrying flares hot. Marcus, you destroyed our lives. Mary and I spent 26 years alone because you were too afraid to do the right thing. Do you have any idea what it's like to grow up in foster care? To be passed from home to home like you're nothing? To spend every single day wondering why no one wants you? Your voice is rising. Mary was 10 years old. I was 2. We were children, and we lost everything because of you. I know. Marcus's voice is barely audible. I know, Sarah, and I'm sorry. I've spent every day for 26 years being sorry, and it's not enough. It will never be enough. He reaches out with a trembling hand, not quite touching you. But please let me help you finish this. Let me testify. Let me give you everything I know, so that you can bring them down. It's the only thing I have left to give. You want to refuse. Want to tell him that his testimony isn't redemption. But you think about Linda Patterson's words, about how Marcus is the key to authenticating the evidence. You think about your father's letter, about his belief that justice matters, and you think about forgiveness. Not the easy kind that erases wrongdoing, but the hard kind that acknowledges pain and chooses to move forward anyway. Okay, you say finally. There's a lawyer coming tomorrow, Linda Patterson. She'll need you to give a deposition to authenticate the evidence. Can you do that? Relief washes over Marcus's face so completely that he looks years younger for just a moment. Yes, I can do that. I'll tell them everything. I'll make sure they know that David and Catherine Harlan were heroes. He pauses, struggling for breath. Will you be here when I give the testimony? You don't want to be. Don't want to sit through hours of Marcus recounting his relationship with your father, his betrayal, the aftermath. But you nod anyway. I'll be here. Linda Patterson arrives the next morning with a videographer and a court reporter, transforming Marcus's hospice room into a deposition suite. Marcus has rallied slightly, probably through sheer force of will. He's propped up in bed, dressed in a clean hospital gown, looking as presentable as a dying man can look. The deposition takes 6 hours. 6 hours of Marcus recounting everything: his friendship with your father, the discovery of Meridian's fraud, the decision to become whistleblowers, his moment of cowardice. He describes how he went into hiding after your parents' deaths, how he watched from a distance as you and Mary were separated, how he carefully orchestrated opportunities for both of you over the years. He authenticates every document in the box, explaining where it came from and how your parents obtained it. And he names names, every executive involved, every official who was paid off, every person who knew about the fraud and chose to look the other way. You sit in the corner through all of it with Mary beside you, and you watch this dying man systematically dismantle the wall of silence that's protected Meridian Technologies for over a quarter century. He doesn't spare himself, doesn't try to minimize his culpability. He just tells the truth. All of it, with the unflinching honesty that comes from having nothing left to lose. When it's finally over, Marcus slumps back against his pillows, exhausted. Linda and her team pack up, promising to be in touch soon, and then it's just you and Mary and Marcus in the dimness. Thank you, Mary says quietly. It's the first time she's spoken directly to Marcus, and you can hear the complexity in those 2 words: gratitude and anger and grief all tangled together. For keeping the evidence, for finally doing this. Marcus looks at her, and his expression crumples. Your father was the best man I ever knew, and you look so much like him. Both of you do. He stops, overcome. He would be so proud of the women you've become. Despite everything, despite all the ways the world tried to break you, you survived. You're strong and brave and good, just like he was. He turns his gaze to you. Your parents would be so proud. The words hit you hard, punching through your anger to strike at the raw grief underneath. You find yourself moving toward the bed, and before you know what you're doing, you're taking Marcus's hand. His skin is cold and paper thin, and you can feel his pulse fluttering weakly. I forgive you, you hear yourself say, and you're shocked that you mean it. Not because he deserves it. Not because his testimony has erased 26 years of suffering, but because holding on to the hatred is too heavy. Because your father believed in standing up for what's right, and that means choosing grace even when vengeance would be easier. I forgive you, Marcus, and I'm going to make sure that what you did today matters. I'm going to make sure Meridian pays for what they did to my parents. Marcus's grip tightens with surprising strength. Tears stream down his face. Thank you, Sarah. That's more than I deserve. Mary steps forward and takes his other hand, and the three of you stay like that for a long moment, connected by grief and guilt and the hope that justice will prevail. He dies 3 days later, in the early hours of the morning, when the hospice is at its quietest. You're not there when it happens. You're at Mary's house, going over strategy with Linda. But Jennifer calls immediately. He went peacefully, no pain, no distress, just slipped away in his sleep, like he'd been waiting for permission to let go. You think about Marcus in those final days, how the burden he'd been carrying had finally been lifted, how he'd done the right thing at last even though it came at the end instead of the beginning. And it's clear that sometimes redemption isn't about erasing your sins. Sometimes it's just about finding the courage to tell the truth before you run out of time. Linda Patterson files the wrongful death lawsuit 2 weeks later, attaching Marcus's deposition and selected evidence as exhibits. The lawsuit becomes national news within hours. Major outlets run headlines about the decades-old conspiracy and the two sisters seeking justice for their murdered parents. Meridian's stock price plummets. Their CEO holds a press conference, denying everything, calling the lawsuit baseless and a transparent attempt to extort money. But then the FBI gets involved. Armed with Marcus's testimony and your parents' evidence, they open a criminal investigation. Federal agents raid Meridian's headquarters. The executives named in your parents' evidence start turning on each other, cutting deals for reduced sentences. And slowly, inevitably, the wall of silence begins to crumble. The trial takes 8 months. You and Mary attend every day, sitting in the front row, your presence, a constant reminder of the human cost of Meridian's greed. On one particularly tense day, you watch as a former executive takes the stand, his voice shaking as he confirms the details from your parents, documents, the falsified trials, the covered-up deaths, the bribes. It's the moment when you see the jury's faces shift, when doubt turns to conviction. And on a cold day in January, 26 years after your parents died, the jury comes back with their verdict. Guilty. On all counts. The CEO is sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. The other executives receive sentences ranging from 10 to 20 years. Meridian Technologies is forced to pay billions in fines and restitution. And your parents' names, which had been forgotten for a quarter century, are suddenly everywhere. In newspapers and magazines and television specials, their story told as an example of courage in the face of impossible odds. But more than that, you and Mary finally have what you've been searching for your entire lives. You have answers. You know who your parents were and what they stood for and why they died. You know that they loved you enough to risk everything. And you know that you're not alone anymore. That you have each other. That the bond severed 26 years ago has been repaired. 6 months after the trial ends, you and Mary stand in front of a modest office building in the same neighborhood where you grew up. The sign above the door reads, "The Harlan Foundation, Reuniting Separated Families." It's funded by a portion of the settlement money, and it's dedicated to helping siblings who are separated in foster care find each other again. On opening day, you give a speech to the small crowd gathered for the ceremony. Mary stands beside you, and you talk about your parents and their belief that standing up for what's right is what defines us. You talk about Marcus Whitmore and the complexity of redemption. And you talk about the power of truth, how it can lie dormant for decades but never really dies. My parents died because they believed that some things are worth fighting for, you say, looking out at the crowd. They believed that truth matters, that justice matters, that we have an obligation to stand up for people who can't stand up for themselves. This foundation is our way of honoring that belief. Our way of making sure that no other children spend 26 years apart when they should be together. The crowd applauds, and you and Mary cut the ribbon. As you walk through the doors of this new venture, this tangible legacy of everything you've lost and found and fought for, you feel something you haven't felt in 26 years. You feel like you're home. That night, you return to the hospice for your regular shift. You stop by room 237, which has a new patient now, an elderly woman with lung cancer who reminds you of the grandmother you never knew. You adjust her pillows and check her vitals, and you think about how this room once held so much pain and complicated history. But it's also the room where you learned the truth, where you found your sister, where you discovered that your parents were heroes. It's the room where Marcus Whitmore spent his final months trying to balance scales that would never be perfectly balanced. As you're leaving for the night, you see Mary waiting in the parking lot, leaning against her car with 2 cups of coffee and a smile. "Ready to go home?" she asks. And home isn't a place anymore. It's standing here with your sister, knowing that whatever comes next, you'll face it together. "Yeah," you say, taking the coffee from Mary's outstretched hand. "I'm ready." And together, 2 sisters who spent 26 years apart, but were never really separated, you walk toward whatever comes next, carrying the past and the future in equal measure.